Politics over humanity. We watch it. We watch it time and time again.
Breaking overnight, outrage and protests after the state attorney general's announcement. No Rochester police officers will be criminally charged in the death of Daniel Prude. This morning, we explain what's happening moving forward.
Also coming up, more big news. Speed Dial, that new mass vaccination site in Rochester, is getting ready to open. When you can start calling to set up your appointments and what you can do to sign up online in less than 2 hours this morning. But first, our top story breaking overnight. The protests, at least for now, are over. Activists do vow to get back out at it once again to voice their frustration after hearing 7 police officers from Rochester in the Daniel Prude case are not going to face any criminal charges.
Prude died days after being pinned to the ground by officers last March. New York Attorney General Tish James made the announcement yesterday.
I know that the Prude family, the Rochester community, and communities across the country will rightfully be disappointed by this outcome. My office presented an extensive case, and we sought a different outcome than the one the grand jury handed us today.
James says she felt there was sufficient evidence to present the case to a grand jury, but the jurors decided not to indict. Demonstrators marched through the city for hours last night, shutting down part of 490 at one point. It was organized by Free the People Rock. The group has been the driving force behind a lot of protests in the city over the death of Daniel Prude. Now, the latest rally ended around 11:40 last night.
This Prude story is still very far from over, even after we found out no criminal charges will come for those officers.
As we look ahead, there are many investigations still ongoing, including one by the feds.
Lynette Adams joins us live once again this morning downtown at the Public Safety Building to take us through those cases. Lynette.
That's right. The Department of Justice is now saying it will launch a federal investigation into the Daniel Prude case. The DOJ says it will review the Attorney General's report and determine whether any further federal response is warranted. This comes months after the Attorney General's office looked at the case and turned it over to a grand jury to look at the evidence. James has released a 200-page report on the case in which she reveals her office hired an outside independent expert in police procedures and use of force, and he found the officers' actions, while not the best, were reasonable police practices. In addition to the DOJ's investigation, 3 investigations are still ongoing. The RPD has not completed its internal review. The City Council is conducting an independent investigation, and Rochester's Police Accountability Board has not come back with its findings.
The criminal justice system is badly in need of reform. The system was built to protect and shield officers from wrongdoing and accountability.
Now, you will soon be able to look at the evidence that the grand jury reviewed. The Attorney General says a judge has granted her request to release the grand jury minutes to the public. We're live at the Public Safety Building this morning. Lynette Adams, News 10 NBC Today.
Thanks, Lynette. Now we want to give you a breakdown of the timeline of events in this Prude case. Daniel Prude was unconscious, not breathing, without a pulse on March 23rd, 2020.
That was right after Rochester police put him in handcuffs, pinned him to the ground, and they also put a spit bag on his head. The public learned of his death months later, September 2nd, after his family released body cam footage. Here's what happened in between. Prude was taken off life support 7 days after he went to the hospital. The medical examiner did rule his death a homicide on March 30th. April 16th, police got word the AG would handle the investigation. Prude's family filed a lawsuit in the summer. That was July 21st. Rochester Mayor Lovely Warren says she first saw the body cam footage August 4th. And Free the People Rock held a news conference to tell the public about the case September 2nd. Those 7 officers were suspended with pay September 3rd.
Rochester's Police Accountability Board says members were at last night's protests. It's part of their investigation into protest-related policies to determine if the RPD promised new approaches being kept. The chair of the group also commented on the grand jury decision, saying every failure to deliver justice for officer wrongdoing proves that the PAB needs to have its disciplinary powers returned, its investigations unimpeded, and its work fully funded.
The AG Tish James is also proposing several reforms herself, including minimizing or doing away with police responses on mental health calls when possible, while also mandating de-escalation training for all officers. So News 10 NBC spoke with former RPD chief as well as Deputy Mayor Dr. Cedric Alexander. He says de-escalation has to be more than just a training.
De-escalation training also have to be written into the evaluation process of our officers, so that when we train them, they're also going to be evaluated at their scene by their supervisors, see if they employed the skills in which they have learned.
Alexander adds this is a chance to reinforce things officers are doing well as to focus on a lot of training for the things they are not doing well.
We know all of this can be so much to take in, especially for kids. Students at city schools will have help processing this news. The Rochester City School District is making staff available for any student who needs support following yesterday's announcement. Students and families can access resources through the district's website. We have that link on our website, WHEC.com. Just to recap our coverage for you right now, the 7 RPD officers in the Daniel Prude case will not face criminal charges. That grand jury decision was announced yesterday. A judge has granted the AG's motion to unseal and publicly release the grand jury minutes in the investigation. And the U.S. Department of Justice issued a statement saying it will launch a federal civil rights review into the Daniel Prude case. We have more breaking coverage for you all morning right here on News 10 NBC today and on our website, WHEC.com.
Now, your first alert forecast with meteorologist Rich Cornelia.
Yeah, it's 6:36. Let's check out those temps right now across the region. You'll note some towns are at or below freezing once again this morning. 32 Holly, 31 Brockport, 28 here in the city in Brighton and Penfield, 32 Webster, 28 in Walworth. So we had some of that melting yesterday. Just be aware. Watch that step outside. Could be a little black ice on the driveway this morning. First alert Doppler 10, all is quiet. Couple of flurries right up near the lake shore. Out towards Orleans County. That's part of that warm front coming through. We'll generally just see a few clouds the next couple of hours increase, and then as that front clears, the winds pick up. Temperatures really take off today. Look at those readings by early afternoon. We'll be in the 40s to near 50 for highs by 1, 2 o'clock this afternoon. Those winds will be strong heading into tonight, especially behind a cold front that'll arrive later this afternoon. We'll talk more about the peak gusts and the timing for those winds coming up in just a few minutes. Nikki?
Thanks, Rich. It is 6:37 now. A big day in the vaccine rollout. Starting this morning, the vaccine distribution expands here in Rochester.
Begins in a little more than an hour. You can start scheduling appointments for that new mass vaccination site in the city. We told you that will open at the old Kodak Hawkeye parking lot on St. Paul Street and Avenue E. You can schedule appointments starting at 8 o'clock this morning. They will go fast. The site should appear on the state's Am I Eligible website. You can also call the state's COVID vaccine hotline. We've got all that number and information posted on our website. Again, sign up this morning starting at 8 for appointments. The vaccine site opens a week from today, March 3rd. For the first week, the first shots, those are being set aside for people who live in certain city neighborhoods designated by zip code.
Schools will not be able to get out of standardized testing because of COVID this year. That's the latest word from the Education Department. It will not allow states to skip federally required testing in schools, but it is allowing some flexibility. States can move testing to the summer or fall, or they can offer shortened tests or online assessments. Districts can also apply for an exemption from certain accountability measures. The New York State United Teachers Union is blasting this decision, saying no student should be forced to go to school in person just to take a test. One local hospital is no longer scheduling vaccine appointments for non-healthcare workers. Rochester Regional Health made that announcement yesterday. According to a release, it's because the state has shifted delivery of the vaccine doses from healthcare systems to vaccination sites and pharmacies. This move means RRH will no longer be contacting eligible patients to schedule them to get their first dose. If you do have an appointment already to get your scheduled dose, that will go on as planned.
Got to follow up on a recent good question this morning. It's about the travel rules for New York State. We are still getting a lot of messages recently asking if the quarantine after a trip out of state rule still applies to people who have been fully vaccinated with both shots of the vaccine. For now, that answer remains yes. There's been no official change to the policy, But we did check. State officials say they are looking at this. There's been a lot of confusion over this topic in recent weeks after the CDC updated guidance saying fully vaccinated people who have a close contact no longer have to quarantine within 90 days after their second shot.
Do you remember that disturbing scene in Rochester?
Happened so many months ago, but it went viral. It was looters attacking a couple with 2x4s outside a store on Monroe Avenue. Again, this was last spring. You asked me this week, any updates on any arrests? I spoke with RPD to get some answers. What investigators say coming up all new this morning on News 10 NBC Today.
Before we head to break, we want to give you a live look from our First Alert camera network atop Pinnacle Hill, St. Anne's Community Cam there as we start the day that we're actually warming up, maybe near 50.
Briefly.
Rich Caniglia has all the details for you coming up next.